Θα τα πω λίγο και στα ελληνικά και στα αγγλικά, δεν θα πω πολλά. Το καλωσόρισμα κάνω και θα δώσω το λόγο στην αγαπημένη Κατερίνα Κοσκινά, που είναι και μέλος του Διοικητικού Συμβουλίου του Θέατρου Τέχνης και που είχε την πρωτοβουλία της σημερινής. Θα μας τα πει. It's so rare to be able to... Θα τα πω μια φορά στα αγγλικά, εντάξει. It's so rare to be able to get into the mind of an artist and understand, get to know the way he creates his creations. It's something that is very... it's a privilege for the audience to have this occasion. So, thank you for giving us the key to your mind and to your work through this book, through the way you work with artists, which is very interesting for all of us here. And thank you for coming tonight. Λέω ότι πόσο σημαντικό και πόσο σπάνιο είναι να μπορούμε να μπούμε στο μυαλό ενός καλλιτέχνη και να δούμε τον τρόπο που δουλεύει. Δεν μπορούμε να μπαίνουμε σε όποια πρόβα θέλουμε. Εδώ είναι σαν μέσα από το βιβλίο, σαν να μπαίνουμε στην πρόβα του Γιαν Φαμπρ. Και αυτό είναι μια έτσι, πολύ ιδιαίτερη συνθήκη που αξίζει τον κόπο πολύ να την... Ευχαριστούμε που έχουμε αυτή την ευκαιρία και θέλουμε να ακούσουμε και περισσότερα για αυτήν. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ. Δίνω το λόγο στην Κατερίνα Κοσκινά.
Καλησπέρα. Ναι, εντάξει, δεν πειράζει. Δεν είμαι τόσο προετοιμασμένη για να σας μιλήσω. Καταρχήν, να ευχαριστήσω όλους που είστε εδώ. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό για μας. Εγώ συνεργάζομαι με τον Γιαν Φαμπρ εδώ και πολλά χρόνια. Γνωριζόμαστε πάνω από 30 και έχουμε κάνει πολλά πράγματα μαζί μέχρι στιγμής, αλλά κυρίως στον τομέα που αφορά τα εικαστικά. Τώρα, σήμερα είμαστε εδώ για την παρουσίαση ενός βιβλίου στα ελληνικά, ενός βιβλίου που έχει ήδη μεταφραστεί σε 11 γλώσσες και μέχρι το τέλος του χρόνου θα είναι 15 και έχει να κάνει με τις κατευθυντήριες γραμμές που ο Γιαν Φαμπρ δίνει στους σπουδαστές του, αλλά όχι μόνο. Λέω σπουδαστές του γιατί όσοι δεν τον γνωρίζετε καλά, αλλά νομίζω ότι τον γνωρίζετε, είναι ένας πολυεπίπεδος, πολυσχηδής καλλιτέχνης, ο οποίος δουλεύει, ξεκίνησε σαν εικαστικός, παραμένει εικαστικός, ωστόσο έχει, όπως μου είπε ο ίδιος χτες, που τον ρώτησα 2 πράγματα, μου είπε είναι σαν να βλέπεις έναν οργανισμό, ένα ζωντανό οργανισμό, μια πεταλούδα με 2 φτερά. Από τη μία πλευρά είναι το κομμάτι των παραστατικών τεχνών και από την άλλη είναι τα εικαστικά, τα οποία συνδέονται μέσα από το χρόνο και στο χώρο. Και όταν λέμε χώρο, για το Γιαν Φαμπρ, ο χώρος είναι εξωτερικός, εκεί που δουλεύει, εσωτερικός, γιατί δουλεύει με το θέατρο και με το σώμα, το σωματικό θέατρο, και εγκεφαλικός εννοείται. Νομίζω ότι θα είμαι εδώ, δεν θέλω να κλέψω χρόνο, είμαστε για να ακούσουμε το Γιαν Φαμπρ. Θέλω να πω, πριν φωνάξω την κυρία Πόλα Καπόλα, που είναι η εκδότρια των εκδόσεων Νήσος και άρα είναι η κυρία που έχει ασχοληθεί με το συγκεκριμένο βιβλίο και βεβαίως έχει εκδώσει και άλλα βιβλία του Γιαν Φαμπρ, άλλα 2. Να πω 2 λόγια για την κυρία Σίλβια Σολακίδη, η οποία είναι η μεταφράστρια του βιβλίου. Ελπίζω ότι και η Σίλβια θα θελήσει να πει λίγα περισσότερα. Μέσα στο συγκεκριμένο τραπέζι είναι άνθρωποι που έρχονται από διαφορετικούς χώρους. Ο Γιάν συνηθίζει να δουλεύει και στη σχολή του, στο Τρουμπλέιν δηλαδή, αλλά και στον Άγγελο, που είναι η επωνυμία της του χώρου που ασχολείται αποκλειστικά με τα εικαστικά, συνηθίζει να δουλεύει διεπιστημονικά. Έτσι λοιπόν ένας τέτοιος άνθρωπος είναι και η Σίλβια Σολακίδη, που διδάσκει στο Πανεπιστήμιο του Σάρε, φιλοσοφία. Ωστόσο γνώρισε τον Γιαν, ενθουσιάστηκε με τη δουλειά του και έκτοτε ασχολήθηκε τόσο πολύ ώστε να μπορεί να είναι σε θέση να μεταφράσει το βιβλίο και να παρακολουθεί την δουλειά του. Νομίζω ότι με αυτά σας ευχαριστώ και πάλι και νομίζω να έρθει η κυρία Καπόλα για τα υπόλοιπα.
Καλησπέρα και από μένα, από τις εκδόσεις Νήσος. Να ευχαριστήσω και εγώ όλους εσάς που είστε σήμερα εδώ. Δεν θα πω για το βιβλίο, τα είπανε πάρα πολύ, τα είπε πολύ ωραία η Κατερίνα και νομίζω όλοι έχουμε έρθει για να ακούσουμε τον Γιαν Φαμπρ, άλλωστε και όχι εμένα. Να πω μόνο κάποιες ευχαριστίες που θεωρώ ότι οφείλω. Η πρώτη και καλύτερα θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω τον Γιαν για την εμπιστοσύνη που έχει δείξει στις εκδόσεις και έχουμε βγάλει μαζί 3 βιβλία, αυτό είναι το τελευταίο. Έχουμε βγάλει και το νυχτολόγιο, που είναι το ημερολόγιο του, μια παλιότερη δουλειά, και κάποιους θεατρικούς μονολόγους, το «Είμαι ένα λάθος», και που έχουμε αυτή την πάρα πολύ ωραία συνεργασία. Αισθάνομαι πολύ τυχερή που δουλεύω μαζί του. Να ευχαριστήσω πάρα πολύ τη Σίλβια Σολακίδη και για την εξαιρετική μετάφραση που έχει κάνει, θα το δείτε στο βιβλίο όσοι το πάρετε, αλλά και για την βοήθειά της απόψε στη διερμηνία. Αν τυχόν προκύψουν ερωτήσεις από εσάς που θέλετε να τις κάνετε στα ελληνικά, θα τις μεταφέρει στο Γιάνν στα αγγλικά. Φυσικά το Θέατρο Τέχνης για τη φιλοξενία, τη Μαριάννα Κάλμπαρη και την Κατερίνα Κοσκινά, που νομίζω ότι κάνανε πάρα πολλά πράγματα για να είμαστε σήμερα απόψε όλοι εδώ. Τη Μιτ Μάρτενς, η οποία είναι συνεργάτης του Γιάνν και έχει βοηθήσει και αυτή από την πλευρά της για αυτή την εκδήλωση. Νομίζω δεν έχω κάτι άλλο να πω. Ο λόγος στο Γιάνν. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
It's me already. Sorry? It's already me. Okay. Fine. Yeah, maybe I'm open for questions. Huh?
We start with questions.
Yes, of course. Yeah, people are here.
Okay. Η κυρία Κοσκινά είπε ότι είστε καλλιτέχνης εικαστικός, καλλιτέχνης του θεάτρου. Πώς θα χαρακτηρίσατε εσείς ο ίδιος τη δουλειά σας? Ms. Koskina said that you are a theater artist, performance artist, visual artist, writer. What is your profession? What is your job? How would you describe it?
Yes, I'm a servant of beauty, essentially. I'm always sitting down on my knees for the work. The work will guide me to the best medium. Sometimes it's a sculpture, sometimes it's a text, sometimes it's a theater play. It depends from which idea that I have, that I put myself on the knees and the medium will offer itself.
Could you please talk to us? Θα μπορούσατε να μας μιλήσετε λίγο για την ιδέα πίσω από αυτό το βιβλίο. Πότε ξεκίνησε?
When I speak English, it's okay?
It's
okay? What?
It's better in French.
Flemish?
Να σας ρωτήσω για την ιδέα που οδήγησε σε αυτό το βιβλίο. Πότε ξεκίνησε, πόσος χρόνος χρειάστηκε για να γραφτεί το βιβλίο και σε ποιους απευθύνεστε? Ποιο είναι το κοινό αυτού του βιβλίου, κατά τη γνώμη σας? I would like to ask you about the idea that led to this book. When and how it started, how long it took, and what is the audience of the book? Who are the readers?
Yeah, essentially the book is a process almost of 40 years. 40 years working in my company with some of my actors. I have 2 actresses I work with 40 years with. Annick Super and Else Keukelier, very legendary Belgian actresses. There are some people I work in a company with for 25 years, 20 years, 15 years. So it's, and we worked on the book for more than 10 years. So I was teaching a lot of these exercises in my company already and developing them and fine-tuning them. And at one particular moment, Luc van den Dries, a theater scholar, a theater scientist who followed my work also for 25 years, he said, like, Jan, I think it's time that you make a book, that you pass on your experience, your knowledge. And then we start working on the book with me, Luc van den Dries. Sorry? Closer? Okay, yeah. So then we start working on the book with 3 of my main actors, 2 French people, Annabelle Jambon and Cédric Charon, and the Croatian lady, an actress, Ivana Josic. And because the book, let us say, the guiding line I developed over the years, over the 40 years working, is what I call physiological acting. So the body as the truth. So I teach my performers, actors, dancers, singers, I teach them to understand which kind of physiological process is happening in the body. Not an emotion from the outside, but what's happening in the body. So it's by the series of exercises, you can train yourself to discover this. How your kidneys, your liver, your heart, the blood, your muscles, how they're reacting. And then we really on purpose wanted to make a book. I mean, you know, all the books, very important books, like Towards a Poor Theater from Grotowski, Empty Space from Peter Brook. You have these important publications in history. But a lot of, particularly Grotowski, a lot of, when you read this today, it became very old-fashioned because it's a method. And I aimed for a guiding line. And what was very important also that we, together with the University of Antwerp, with some professors, we, let us say, every exercise we did with the performers was measured. They were full of these small buttons so that the scientists could measure how is the reaction of the muscles, how is the reaction of the heartbeats, how is the blood going, how is the reaction of the liver. So to understand also that the exercises are, let us say, have a kind of, underneath in exercise is a kind of scientific approach also. So, but it was 10 years work to make the book.
Αναφερθήκατε στην υποκριτική που προκύπτει από τη φυσιολογία του σώματος. Αυτός είναι ένας πρωτότυπος όρος που έχει δημιουργηθεί ακριβώς για να περιγράψει το έργο σας και σε αυτό το βιβλίο. Θα θέλετε να μας πείτε το πώς, και δεν είναι ο μόνος, θα θέλετε να μας πείτε το πώς προέκυψε η ορολογία που διαβάζουμε στο βιβλίο. You mentioned physiological acting. This is an original term to describe your work. Would you like to talk to us a bit about how terminology has been developed for this book? This term and maybe other terms that we can read there. How did you end up there? Was it from Professor Luc van den Dries? Was it from you? Was it an interaction among?
No, it was clearly the development by the purely daily experience to be in my rehearsal space and to create my performances by watching, by studying, by working with my actors. And I was already teaching in my company, my exercises, that I started being more and more aware of the truthfulness of the body. I'm always looking with my actors to the truthfulness of the moments, because the body doesn't lie. Words are travesties, but the body doesn't lie, not towards yourself and not towards the outside world. So the physiological principle, it was quite quickly already, I think, 20 years ago already, quickly I was using that word. Yeah.
Λέτε στο βιβλίο ότι ο στόχος της υποκριτικής αυτής είναι να μετατραπεί ο ηθοποιός όχι σε κάποιον άλλον, σε κάποιον ρόλο, σε κάποιον χαρακτήρα, αλλά σε κάτι άλλο. Τι είναι αυτό το κάτι άλλο? You say that the aim of this physiological acting is the transformation of the performer into something else and not someone else. What is this something else, please?
Yeah, it's through the series of exercises, and of course, by doing them almost on a daily basis for years, that's essentially that there's a kind of, from the inside to the outside, a kind of transformation happening, a metamorphose. And that's what I call in the book also, not to perform somebody else, but becoming something else. And by the something else, I mean that there's a lot of, let us say, in all of my works, and also in the book, I explain it in different ways, it's always trying to find a state between from human to animal, from animal to human.
Γιατί ονομάζονται κατευθυντήριες γραμμές και όχι μέθοδος? Why do you call this book guiding lines and not method?
Because what I said before, when, for example, I mean, I was lucky that I met the master Grotowski. He came to see my work in the beginning of the 80s in Volterra. It was quite funny. I was invited in a small festival in Italy, in Volterra, in the beginning of the 80s. And I was performing for 8 people. I thought, like, oh, nobody comes. And Grotowski was there, Judith Melina, the wife of Julian Beck from the Living Theatre, some Eugène Barba. So these really great masters where I studied about, they came to watch my work. And then, of course, I also started reading more about theatre work also. And today, when you read, for example, Towards the Poor Theatre, it's still an interesting work, but it's because it's a method. And we know with methods, a method is always under a form of a dogma, on the rules. And a method becomes quite quickly old, after 10 years or 20 years. And let us say, I'm more inspired still today, and when I read the work from Anthony Artaud, for example, Anthony Artaud is for me somebody still very contemporary, almost, because it also talks about more a spiritual, a mental approach, and it's not a method. It's to open, let's say, to open the spirit, the mind, and that makes it still very contemporary. In that sense, my book is a guiding line that can, let's say, stretch the imagination of your body and your mind.
Αυτές οι κατευθυντήριες γραμμές είναι για τους performer του 21ου αιώνα. Επομένως, πιστεύετε ότι ένα από τα βασικά εφόδια των performer της σημερινής εποχής θα πρέπει να είναι αυτό που είπατε, ο συνδυασμός που γίνεται στον Αρτό. Those guidelines are for the performer of the 21st century. So, all those masters are from the 20th century. Do you believe that the guidelines should do this merge that you described in Artaud's work, or something similar?
I mean, don't forget that the books from Grotowski and Peter Brook and Delacroix and Lecoq, all these big masters, they talk still about the actor. And essentially the actor is quite concept of the 19th century. For 40 years I have a company with actors, dancers, musicians, singers. And usually the people I'm working with, they studied both. A lot of them, they studied classical dance, classical acting, contemporary acting. Did it sometimes both schools. And then in my company, I already for 35 years, I think, I educate them also in art history. They always have to work and study paintings, particularly from the Flemish masters. With every working process, they have to study, analyze paintings for improvisations, for the representation of the human body on stage, for the light. When I make my light, I have still the paintings from Rubens next to me. Often the paintings from Jürgen Bosch for the imagination, the subversivity. Also, so they are trained, also my company is trained in this field also. And also I try to educate the company in performance art. I myself, as a young artist, I did a lot of one-man performances. And performance, of course, is another medium than theater. Because every performance I did in my life, I did only one time. And I sometimes ended up with the police, sometimes I was arrested, sometimes I was in an hospital. But I introduced, I think I was the first one in Europe to introduce the idea of real time and real action inside of the theater codex. For that reason, the book calls from act to acting. And also, so it's a consilience. I try to educate my company, my steady company. They're educated in a form of consilience. So it's the bridge and the links between, let's say, classical acting, classical dance, contemporary acting, performance art, visual arts, particularly classical painting, but also scientists. I'm very inspired. My biggest inspirations are the scientists. So, for example, in the book also, I talk often about this. For example, there's a scientist I work with, Giacomo Risolati. He's a gentleman from Parma. He invited me to work with him because he liked my work very much, my visual arts. And he's the gentleman who discovered the mirror neurons. Through him, we know the idea, through the mirror neurons, we know the idea of imitation, compassion, and empathy. Compassion is not something given by God, but it's something very human. The empathy is like, you know, the feeling when you're sitting in your chair, you're looking to a football match, and what happens through the mirror neurons, you move, you sit still in your chair, but you move everything in your body. Thanks to Risolati also, we understand now that imitation is one of the highest forms of intelligence. So it's this, then also psychoanalysts also inspired me. So it's all these different fields that are brought together in a kind of teaching. And the idea of consilience is with another scientist I work together with. His name is Edward O. Wilson. And Edward O. Wilson wrote his masterpiece called The Fundament. He got the Pulitzer Prize for it. He was one of the most brilliant people alive after Stephen Hawking. And I made also with him different debates in a movie. And he introduced, Edward O. Wilson introduced the idea of consilience again. Essentially, I'm a consilience artist, not a multimedia artist, not an hybride artist. I will explain you the tool of consilience. To give you a simple example, it's, for example, I'm an amateur entomologist. By study the field entomology, the way insects behave, the way insects deal with territory, and then you look to humans, the kinetical intelligence of humans, the way they deal with space or conquer space. You can see links, and you can bring these links together and give new interpretations. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing already 40 years with, let us say, the consilience through my visual arts, my writing, my stage work, with the research of dancing, for example. A lot of my topographies are based on the topography of insects or the kinetical intelligence from insects and animals. So that's the idea of consilience. And the book is also about this consilience, to bring the performers, to give the performer a kind of scope of not only the bourgeois idea of being an actor, you know, but being a contemporary performer.
May I have a minute to explain consilience in Greek? Yeah. Το βιβλίο, ο όρος consilience είναι φιλοσοφικός όρος του 19ου αιώνα. Επανήλθε... συγγνώμη. Ο όρος consilience είναι φιλοσοφικός όρος του 19ου αιώνα και επανήλθε στο προσκήνιο από τον βιολόγο Edward Wilson, με τον οποίο ο κύριος Fabre έχει συνεργαστεί. Το βιβλίο με αυτό τον τίτλο στα ελληνικά, έχει μεταφραστεί, αλλά ο όρος consilience δεν έχει μεταφραστεί. Σημαίνει με δύο λόγια ότι τα αποτελέσματα, τα ευρήματα της μελέτης ενός γνωστικού αντικειμένου χρησιμοποιούνται σε ένα άλλο γνωστικό αντικείμενο. May I ask you about the structure of the book? Να σας ρωτήσω για τη δομή του βιβλίου. Υπάρχουν ασκήσεις, υπάρχουν αυτοσχεδιασμοί και χορογραφικά μοντέλα. Πώς αυτά τα τρία στοιχεία συνδυάζονται στη διδασκαλία σας και στη δουλειά σας? May I ask you about the structure of the book? How the exercises, improvisations and choreographic models intertwine, go together in your work and your teaching?
Yeah, the book is essentially in different chapters, and you have the basic principles. For example, one basic principle is angel feet. One basic principle is splitting space. You have different basic principles. Then you have, I think, more than 30 exercises we teach. When we teach, let us say, when my teachers teach, it's first the basic exercises. And they're all connected with each other, the exercises. And then the second part and the third part of the book is for advanced choreographers and dancers. There are different way of approaching dance. And there are models to work with also. And then the last part is the idea of improvisation. Because improvisation is a very important tool. But of course the basis is the exercises. Because the exercises, they're a kind of models where you know, when you would see a performance of me, you could recognize in every work I make on stage, you could recognize all the exercises in the work. Because all the models, all the exercises are kind of models you can use in different ways. For example, there's an exercise, it's often happens, we have often even people from who do Hollywood movies or a Spanish television series or German television series. They come to the teaching in Antwerp, and there's an exercise of they have to clean the floor with their body, with your nose, with your pink, with your toe, with your legs, with your ass, everything on their body you have to clean the floor with. And now you see these people always like going like, what a stupid thing is this? And then they're usually a little bit classical trained, and then I say, you know what? Imagine you have to perform Lady Macbeth. Think about this. And then you go, ah, yes. So there are a lot of models inside. I mean, and you can bring them back even to classical plays or classical performances, except on the first glance, they don't approach it like this, you understand? And I approach it from a physicality from the body. What I said, the truthful of the body. From that reason, the book calls From Act to Acting. It's from doing, experience in real time with your body and see what's then happening inside of your body, feeling the physiological reactions. And it starts with simple, with tiredness, sweating, crying, everything what comes in, like what's happening inside of your body. And on that moment when you're under control of this, you can start using this tool to make a step to acting.
May I have a minute to explain the translation of the title? Στα ελληνικά επιλέγει η εξής μετάφραση: από την πράξη στη θεατρική πράξη. Ο λόγος είναι ότι αν πήγαινε η μετάφραση λέξη προς λέξη, θα ήταν ή από την πράξη ή από την δράση προς την υποκριτική ή την ηθοποιία. Αλλά σε αντίθεση με ό,τι συμβαίνει στη γλώσσα του κυρίου Φαμπρ, τα φλαμανδικά και στα αγγλικά, στα ελληνικά η ηθοποιία και η υποκριτική δεν προέρχονται από το ρήμα πράτο ή το ρήμα δρό. Πιο σημαντικό, λοιπόν, είναι κατά τη γνώμη μου να φανεί η μετάβαση από το ένα στο άλλο, τη μετάβαση, το μετασχηματισμό που ήδη περιέγραψε ο κύριος Φαμπρ, και αυτό επελέγει αυτός ο τρόπος μετάφρασης. And the exercises, is it better to do them one by one or as a series? Είναι καλύτερα να γίνουν οι ασκήσεις σε σειρά ή μία-μία? And what is the first exercise? Και ποια είναι η πρώτη άσκηση?
Yeah, no, there's a kind of building up in exercises. The first exercise is a breathing exercise. And the breathing exercise comes back regularly in the teaching, because breathing is incredibly important to learn to breathe well. Because a lot of actors, they don't breathe well, or a lot of dancers, they don't breathe well. So that's a very fundamental exercise in teaching, the breathing. Because you know, when you don't breathe well, you're getting kind of hyperventilation, your blood is getting sour, your muscles are getting cramped. And of course, I train my work, my theater work is quite physical. And sometimes long performances from 8 hours, 24 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. So my performers have to be in very good physical shape, and they have to learn to deal with tiredness and to deal with when they are tired, that they don't get in panic, that they always, every second, when they have to perform, let us say, a very extreme battle scene or fighting scene, and 2 minutes later you have to go on stage and you have to perform a very tender scene, that they, through the breathing exercise and through the reflex, because when you do the exercise, your body gets the reflex from the right breathing exercises, that you immediately are calm and under control. So, and the exercises are made that, let us say, slowly. It starts with breathing exercises, then it starts with the star, then we go to an homage to Grotowski, the cat exercise, then the tiger exercise, animals, a lot of animals, then the lizard exercise, because there's also an awareness in the teaching about cold blood and warm blood. Some animals are built to kill, other animals are very low energy. So to learn also to have a kind of incredible outer energy that comes from the inside, but at the same time also to learn a kind of controlled energy that's almost staying inside. So it's the following up of exercises to the more difficult ones.
Όταν διδάσκεται αυτές τις εξετάσεις σε master classes, αυτές τις ασκήσεις, σε master classes, το master class έχει μία αυστηρή δομή, η εξέλιξη του γίνεται ίσως με κάποιο διαφορετικό τρόπο, και σε ποιους απευθύνεται και ποια είναι η διάρκεια του. When you teach those exercises in a master class, for whom, what is the duration of the master class, and does it have a fixed structure or things work differently?
No, when, let us say, we teach almost in all the places in the world, and let us say when it's a new group, then it's quite a fixed structure in the teaching. But some people come back to the master class 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and it depends which group it is. Then we go to other kind of type of exercises, the more elaborated one, the more difficult ones. Yeah.
Ποιος είναι ο ρόλος του βιβλίου πλέον σε αυτά τα master classes, στη διδασκαλία? What is the role of the book when you teach now? How do you use it?
The book is a guiding line also for my teachers still, and also we often when we teach, because now the book is published almost like in 15 languages, often we teach and then we read parts of the books, or the students have to read a part of the book to understand also where things are coming from. Because there are sometimes also, we have some exercises on homage to Grotowski's, for example, is inside homage Delacroix, and homage to Lecoq. Peter Brook, who came to teach in my laboratorium in Antwerp 2-3 times, he also donated an exercise. So I made also some exercises as an homage to masters before me. But some exercises are also developed with some actors and dancers in my company. So then I dedicated that exercise to that actor or to that dancer.
Υπάρχουν επίσης πάρα πολλές ασκήσεις που σχετίζονται με ζώα. There are many exercises that are related to animals. Why is this?
Because I think that animals are the best doctors and philosophers in the world. And of course we are animalistic. We have still a reptile brain and we have a tail from an animal. I mean, we are very cruel animals, eh? We're very cruel animals. And what I said before already is it's a lot of these exercises or the idea that one particular moment you become something else, and this something else is you transform, you metamorphose, and you become a human with almost animalistic features, or sometimes an animalistic animal with humanistic features. It's always this transition, this metamorphosing.
Θα θέλατε να μας παρουσιάσετε μια συγκεκριμένη άσκηση, σαν παράδειγμα. Ίσως κάποια άσκηση που προτιμάτε σε σχέση με τις άλλες. Would you like to present us one exercise as a model, how it works? Maybe one that you like the most? As a matter of fact, flight is my favorite in case.
Which one?
Flight is my
Flight.
favorite
Oh,
in
yeah.
case you want.
Yeah, there's a different exercise I like very much, but there's an exercise that's what you call the old people exercise. Then the people they have to be in the back of the stage, and they have to go a little bit demi-point through their knees, and they have to learn. They have to learn to tremble from, let us say, everything in the body has to tremble from the inside to the outside. And this is really, you have to develop this very slowly. It starts in the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the hands. I will show you, for example, you're really out of control how you do your muscles. And it's by controlling my muscles, the inside, that I can having this tremble. So it is, and I can do this over my complete body. And that's a very difficult exercise because you really have to work on that. You have to analyze your body, you have to know your muscles, you have to know how you guide your muscles. And this is a model, this exercise is a model. When you have this exercise under control, it's an exercise you can perform. For example, you can perform in cold. You can imagine you're in a winter landscape, -30. You're trembling from the cold, from the inside. You're old, or you're trembling of fear. So all these exercises you can use in different situations. For example, another exercise I can describe you, it's quite a classical exercise I do already since the 80s. It's an exercise based on classical paintings, on Flemish masterpieces, and it's the Knight with the Princess. And it's the night. It's a kind of iconography. The knight behaves himself like a knight, the way he sits down, the way he stands, the way he walks. And the princess, he carries the princess to the lost resting place. He has to put her down in a very beautiful, elegant, stylish, gentleman-like way. And the princess comes back to life, jumps in his arms again. And this exercise goes on for more than 35 minutes. So you can imagine after 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the knights, they become very tired. The muscles in the shoulder become tired. The legs are becoming tired. And the princess becomes almost like a sack of potatoes. And then, of course, the interesting struggle starts between act and acting. Where is this thin line that you feel that you know that these two people, this couple starts really performing with what's happening inside of their body, on different levels. And now you're getting of course, by the sheer repetition, you're getting incredible variation of content and changes. And time is essential.
Αναφερθήκατε σε επίδραση από τους φλαμανδούς δασκάλους της ζωγραφικής. Θα θέλετε να μας μιλήσετε για τις επιρροές σας, τις καλλιτεχνικές σας επιρροές, ποιους θαυμάζετε, από ποιους έχετε εμπνευστεί. You mentioned Flemish masters. Would you like to talk to us about your artistic influences? Who do you admire? Who has inspired you?
Yes, essentially I was raised in Antwerp by a father who was a botanical garden specialist. He was a very good drawer. And he took me very young to the Rubens house. I had to copy the drawings of Rubens and copy the paintings of Rubens. Then later he took me to Bruges to copy the drawings of Van Eyck and the paintings of Van Eyck, and to the museums. I had to study Jerome Bosch, Van Dyck, Teniers. I'm coming from a very small country, but you have to imagine we invented oil painting. We were the first in history. It's like when you look to Van Eyck, it's also about theater, it's about the frame. You look to a painting from Van Eyck, and at the first glance, everything anatomically is correct. Completely not. Van Eyck was one of the first artists, essentially, who modified everything to be exactly in the framework, in the window, with the landscape in the back. Maria, when she's sitting with the blue cape, her legs, or her front legs are much too high. Her lower arms are much too long. But what an incredible, you have to imagine this, first of all, these Flemish primitives, they took humans to represent not anymore the divine, and they modulated anatomically everything in the framework. It's mise-en-scène. Mise-en-scène from the human anatomical body. Mise-en-scène from the landscape. Also mise-en-scène from light. When you study these paintings, then you think he had a spot in the studio. Light that came in from that side, light that came in from that side to light up a detail. They were incredible masters. And you have to understand also that they were kind of alchemists. They invented oil painting. They were the first who really were mixing. They traveled for 5-6 months to Afghanistan to buy lapis lazuli, to crush lapis lazuli, to test it, the ants, the reds. Still today, the reason that the cave of Maria looks so blue, beautiful blue, is because it's painted by lapis lazuli. In the back of these paintings, you still have the price from the lapis lazuli, or the ants. We brought them also from Afghanistan, the red ants. We crushed them to make red. The most beautiful red still today in the paintings is from ants. The most beautiful brown in our paintings is from human blood. these alchemists, they cut it themselves also, or used blood from other people to make the brown more beautiful brown. The white, the reason the white looks still so shiny today, because they crushed human bone inside of the white, inside of the zinc white. So they were doing a lot of, they were kind of alchemists, researchers. So that's the country I grew up. So essentially, you always, when you're a Belgian artist or Flemish artist, you always stay a dwarf in a country of giants. You're a very small artist compared with these people. But I still steal a lot from them, I have to be honest. I steal a lot. I have, still from my visual arts, from my writings, from my stage work, I have often the classical masters hanging around me to do improvisations, to get inspired by the lights. And it's true also, when you look, for example, to Jeroen Bosch, still today, you have to see Bosch was in his days a kind of Andy Warhol, a kind of Jeff Koons. Very famous, very respectful. He was living in a territory that's now the Netherlands, but it was in the early days Flanders. And it was a family thing. All his sons and brothers were helping to paint. It was really a very good business. And at the same time, he was high in the church, high in the society. And at the same time, when you look to the small painting, The Sheep of Fools, he's mocking the power, mocking the church, mocking the ones who were in power. A lot of works of Jeroen Bosch or other Flemish masters, they were very subversive, very radical, very more sometimes avant-garde than a lot of contemporary art from today.
Επομένως, οι επιρροές σας ήταν άνθρωποι της πρόκλησης. Εσείς είστε. Your influences were kind of provocative. Do you like this term for yourself or for them? The provocation.
I never think when I'm creating a new work, I create a new drawing, a sculpture, or a text, or a theater piece, or a dance piece. I never think about provocation. I never want to provoke people, but people sometimes are provoked. But yeah, at the same time, provocation is a kind of elegant evocation of the mind. Some public is sometimes provoked because maybe they cannot find the consilience or the links, you understand? So, and when people do not understand things, they're getting a little bit angry. So, but it's never that. It's never my idea to provoke things. I'm too much organically in the field of researching. I'm always curious in exploring and testing and trying to scratch the borders. You understand? Try to experiment. It's systematically I choose for the experiment because it's the when you as an artist, I'm now more than 40 years busy. When you think from yourself that you're fantastic and that you know the experience and that you did it already and you know the answer, then you're lost. I always break down the wall again and I build up the wall again, every time again, over and over. Because it's the curiosity. Because every time I do the same thing, I still discover something new.
Μας είπατε ότι είστε υπηρέτης του κάλους. Ονομάζετε τους performers σας πολεμιστές του κάλους. Ποια είναι τα χαρακτηριστικά αυτών των performer? You told us that you're a servant of beauty, and you call your performers warriors of beauty. What are the features of a warrior of beauty?
Warriors of beauty, they by the training, they become masters in time. They become masters in elegance. They become masters in vulnerability, in the power of vulnerability. They are masters in the strength of being a servant and defending beauty. because essentially beauty is always vulnerable. Like human beings, you always have to defend it. So for that reason, the idea of warrior. And it has probably something to do with my background. I was born in a quite poor family. My father didn't have a car. We didn't have a car at home. My father was driving a bike. And I remember my papa, when I was 10 years old, there was no money to buy a present for me, but he was always, in Triple X Wood, he was always making castles for me. Castles and fortresses. And then shields and swords. And then I got the leftovers from my mother, the lipstick. And then I could make drawings on the shields and on the castles. And so I was always, let's say, triggered by the old stories, the Middle Ages stories of the knights, the Lancelots, the idea of fighting for a good cause. And I think it came from this era, I think.
Αυτός ο καλός σκοπός είναι το κάλος. Τι είναι το κάλος? This good cause is beauty. What is beauty?
Well, beauty is, for me, the color of freedom. There's only one beautiful color, and it's the color of freedom. I think beauty is also, for me, like a butterfly. The moment you take it, you try to explain it, you destroy it. I think, and beauty is free from every ideology. Yeah, that's for me also important. Okay, 3 definitions, it's enough.
So we finish with this and we open the discussion to... Ας κλείσουμε με αυτό και παρακαλώ να ρωτήσετε εσείς ό,τι επιθυμείτε.
Hello. I would like to ask you, I heard that there is a scientific aspect in your approach, artistic approach. There is you are also a painter and in another form of arts. Is there any relation in something that there is no explanation, or something like, let's say, Dionysian, that you come and you have with your actors, with your performers, and you had any time in the past when you realized that there is something Dionysian when you start to create something and when you start to be, whatever you say, vulnerable and, in all these ideas, have you ever thought about this aspect? And do you have any inspiration of Greek mythology or any story about it, any Dionysian aspect maybe that you cannot explain and it's something?
I will tell you where my Greek mythology started. I had 2 turtles. I had 2 turtles at home when I was a young guy. I got them when I was 10 years old. And they stayed with me until I was 16 and a half. And I made a lot of drawings from them and movies. For example, I gave, their names was Janneke and Mieke. My name is also Jan, Janneke, I'm Janneke. And Mieke, it's really 2 Flemish names. It was a female and a male. And I gave them, for example, a new tomato. When I came home from the academy in the evening, I gave him a new tomato. And then you saw Greek drama in action. They were very smart because they were biting in the tomato and the tomato was too new and the tomato slipped away. And then they went with their heads up and down in the corners. They put the tomato in the corners and up and down until the tomato became soft. And you had really Greek victory. And sometimes also a tragedy that it didn't work. And my mother, who was she was quite very well educated from the bourgeois side she married a poor communist, my father. She came from rich parents, but my father was very poor, but she was very educated. And she told me very young, Jan, because I made drawings of my turtles, I made small movies, 8mm movies. So I used later, in my visual arts, you see a lot of turtles coming back. I made sculptures, films with turtles. Also in my theater work, there were turtles. And my mother explained me, Jan, the language on the shields of the turtles is the language of Delphi, of the oracles of Delphi were predicted and read in the shields of the turtles. So very, very young, my mother gave me essentially talking in the evening during the dinner, the stories about the Greek mythologies, about Prometheus, Aeschylus, all the stories about the Greeks. So then later, when I started studying theater, I started reading all the classicals, and I made different works based on the Greek tragedies. My first was in 1988, Prometheus Landscape in Berlin. I made a production during the hour blue, just before the sun came up. I rewrote the text from Aeschylus, the Prometheus. Then I made the second one, the second Prometheus, years later. And then I worked, I think 10 years ago, we toured, we were also in Greece with a performance was called Mount Olympus, the glorified the cult of tragedy. And this was a 24-hour performance. We performed it in Thessaloniki for the festival. Yeah. And this was based on the Dionysian rituals, where normally it was 3 nights and 3 days. We did only 24 hours. And a lot also in my visual arts, you see a lot of Greek mythologies coming back. For example, there's a quite famous sculpture of me, the man who's giving fire. It's me in bronze with a briquet in its lighting, and people can go with a cigarette to take fire. It's like I got fire from other people, I pass on the fire to other people. So the theme is, you see it also in my visual arts, a lot coming back. Yes, I have a notion, let's say I have a notion about the Greek culture. Yes. Yeah.
You talked about a very important interdependence of science and your work, either by censoring the muscles or the movements or the expressions of the human body or the human face. And you said, if I understood correctly, your term is physiography.
No, physiological acting.
Physiological acting, okay.
Yeah, physiological acting.
Okay, so I misunderstood that. It's not physiography, it's physiological acting. But still, as photography, for example, is writing or working with the light, you are working with physiology. And physiology is something that is measurable. So it seems it's not very far from being algorithmically described. So this means that, do you ever think that artificial intelligence would be a help and an agent for you in this training book?
No. I believe, and I wrote about this, I read different essays about this, and I believe that the knowledge our body contains is much more profound than artificial intelligence or than one single computer. That's the reason I think, what I said, I think that animals are the best doctors and philosophers, because we have a part in ourselves, still very animalistic elements in our brain. So don't forget our brain is still a terra incognita. It's a map that we still have to discover. And a lot of things in our body. So we have the capability to transform, to change. Don't forget, the substance of blood is incredibly rich and incredibly powerful. We only know a part of it, like a lot of parts of the brain. So I think I believe in the force and the power of the human body as an intelligence and as a futuristic force.
It's true, but as you see, animation by Walt Disney was resembling and copying the animal, all the animal movements, and made these nice comics. And nowadays, you can really have actually a helping agent that is gear, how do you say, full of aspire to learn, so you can teach him to help you in some things. So it's not a machine, it's not a robot, it's an agent, it's a machine, it's an algorithm, it's somebody that learns like a child, and it's an assistant. So it's not very far from human in a way.
No,
I mean, it sounds...
It's a tool like a pen. It's a tool like a pen. Yeah. I mean, yes, of course. No, of course, it's an elaborated tool. It's a new tool. I understand all these things, but this one thing, the beauty of, particularly of theater, I think, is blood, sweat, and tears. You can have the most best artificial intelligence what you want, but I can smell my actors. I can smell when they did a good performance. A smell is in a positive sense, because we're animalistic. The first time you meet somebody, the first thing unconsciously is a smell, that you like somebody or you don't like somebody. So this you cannot find in artificial intelligence. And theater is beautiful to share the live action of seeing somebody going through different physical states and mental states, and seeing the blood, the tears, the sperm. No artificial intelligence can replace this. That makes theater, I think, so unique, also in the future. There will be always a deep longing from people to come together in a space like this, dark, to be on stage, to see people in action. This will be always this longing. Even when it's forbidden, we will do it secretly, underground. No, I don't see it as a threat. I see it as something, it's a contemporary tool where I think you can learn things from this. Yeah.
Άλλη ερώτηση.
Thank you. Most of what you said, which is very important for the performers and most of us, most of what you've said, which is important for the performers and most of us, has to do with mainly the technique or the means by which you achieve your artistic goals. That's what I have understood. My question, I would like to ask you, because this is more important for me, if I may, what is your aesthetic ideal? What as an artist, as someone who has this inspiration to affect us, what do you want to instigate in our souls, in our perception? That's my question. I don't know if...
It's a very difficult question. Because, to be honest, when I'm in the working process, when I'm in my studio for visual arts or in my laboratory in Antwerp for my theater work, and I'm creating a new piece, what we're going to do? The company comes together and we're going to start a new creation. to be honest, I never think about the public. Never. 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 Because the moment I would think about it, I would maybe step into the trap to please somebody. And to please a public is for me very uninteresting as an artist. Plus also, I mean, I'm 40 years busy and I see sometimes how people behave. I mean, I still make today, there's now in Milano, there's now a festival dedicated to my work, and I present there a lot of solo pieces. I still write texts, and I still make solo work for my actors, my people in my company. Why? Because it's very detailed. Every breath, every word, every point, every comma, every movement. It's focused on that performer. She's the set, or he is the set, the light, the nerve cell, the sexuality, everything from the performance. So it's always an exercise in going back in the fundamental of what is performance, what is acting, what is movement, what is dancing. And I often sometimes make performances that I only show for 30 people. Because you have the individual in front of you. But for example, I made performances from 8 hours long, from 24 hours long, from 4 hours long, and I performed this piece for 5,000 people. And it happened often to me that 2,000 people start yelling and throwing things to the stage. Oranges, plates, glasses to my actors. People sometimes en masse behave very strange. I'm always afraid of masses of people. Also with manifestations. It's always this mass. You're more in love with the spectacle of revolution than with the real evolution, I think. And so it's also in theater. So really the essence is I never think about the public. The only thing I always say to my actors and performers, I always say, for me, when I'm traveling around or I'm in an airport, and because now I have a son for 4 years old, and I see sometimes a mama and a papa, which these small human beings with children, and I see the incredible love between the mama, the papa, and the small child. Is the most beautiful theater you can imagine. The electricity, you see, that's amazing. This electricity I see, that makes me look to them. That makes me to communicate. I want to discover. And maybe that's the thing what I'm saying to my performers in the working process or before they go on stage. Guys, love each other. Love each other very deeply. Have respect for each other, love each other, discover each other, you know? Because when that communication is happening on stage, then there's electricity going to the spectators. And the spectator will be sucked inside. And of course, gentlemen, also my theater is you have a lot of theater is a theater of unification. It's like a lot of performances, 95% of the theater is you have the mirror, and the mirror reflects the emotions of the public. That's the theater of the unification. My theater is not like this. My theater is, there's a mirror here, there's a mirror here. There's a mirror like this. There's a universe that I'm creating that gives electricity and that probably communicates this. I want that the public longs to communicate, longs to discover. But I believe in the loneliness of the universe of my work. Do you understand this, gentlemen?
You mentioned Artaud's methodology being very spiritual, and your guiding line is very physiological. Do you think...
Can you wave because I don't see you?
Hello, I'm here. Hi. Do you think those two are tethered, the physiological and the spiritual?
One more time, lady.
You mentioned Artaud and his methodology being very spiritual, very mental, and your guiding line is very physiological. Do you think those are tethered? Those are connected?
Yes, because there is an exercise also I dedicated to Artaud. You know, there's this beautiful saying from Artaud. Be a killer, have the rage of a killer without killing. That's what I want to see on stage. The passion, the fire. Without killing. That's Artaud. And there's an exercise is dedicated to him.
You've done this job for many years now, so... Hi. You've done this job for many years now, so I'd like to ask you, what do you like the most about being an artist? And also, if you had to give a piece of advice to the young generation that is here tonight, what would you say?
Sorry, one more time, the first part of the question is?
What do you like the most about being an artist?
And then advice to the young generation, right? What I like the most of being an artist, it didn't change for me. It takes a lifetime to become a young artist. You know, gentlemen, I did in my life, I was lucky, because lucky is the only justice. I was in the biggest museums in the world. I did as the first living artist the Louvre, the Hermitage. I was in Stedelijk Museum. I was in Beboer. I was in the major Kunsthistorische Museum in Vienna. I was in the major museums. I was in the major festivals, in the major theaters all over the world with my theater work. And what is good? Because I remember as a young guy when I went to the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, I was 25 and there was hanging Barnett Newman, who is afraid of red, yellow, and blue. I thought, oh, fucking hell, which work I have to put here that can conquer it with Barnett Newman? You're in a cramp as a young artist. And by having this experience, by having these museums and these festivals and theaters, I became much more a younger artist, much more freer. So my ambition became much more inside of the work, and not the ambition to hang in the important museum or to go to the important festival. So, and this didn't, it's even more, it became better with me. Like I was very young. What drives me is the pleasure. Please don't become an artist when you don't have pleasure in it. The first thing, you need pleasure as an actor or as a dancer or as an artist, the pleasure. And then, of course, the feeling of necessity, the curiosity. Yeah, I think that the three things are still makes me tick. Curiosity to discover, the pleasure to work, to do the things with people, also for myself. And then to give advice to the young generation is, we're preparing my company, we're preparing now a new creation. And I'll tell you the title. It calls Harikiri, a political and incorrect performance. And it's an homage to a magazine who was quite famous in the 60s, 70s. French magazine, very subversive, very radical, surrealistic. And they were, every time by the French government in France, forbidden. Every time they brought a new number out, they had problems. The law, they had to go to the courts, they were punished. But they didn't give up until it was too far and they were really banned. And the following up of Harakiri is Charlie Hebdo, that's still existing today. And Harakiri was an example for almost all over the world for satirical magazines who were very subversive. So I'm going to make an homage to that magazine. And you hear the subtitle, Political and Incorrect. The thing is, what I experience with the young generation, that people are afraid today. Afraid for the political correctness, afraid to say something wrong, to use the wrong word. You know what happened to me? I mean, a while ago I was teaching in Croatian. It was organized by New York. I say, like always, for all my life, I say, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gian Fabr. And somebody went like this, my shoulder, and I had to come separately. And they say, Mr. Fabre, you're insulting people now. I said, sorry, what I did wrong. Yeah, but maybe it's possible that there's somebody in between. That is a them in between. Now, there was a lady from London, an actress, a woman, but she felt like a man. And I excused myself, and she said, oh, Mr. Fabre, I don't mind, it's okay, you can come. But so, you're living in this incredible political correctness that I feel with a lot of, even my colleagues in Europe, or younger people, because a lot of young directors come to me to study, young choreographers, they're afraid. What I see now, what's happening the last 10 years, that a lot of work becomes mediocre because they want to please everybody. They want to please the new rules of political correctness. What I think is for an artist a catastrophic end. You know? I think for young artists, I would say, make mistakes and make them in style.
Καλησπέρα. Το βιβλίο σας είναι ένα εγχειρίδιο, θα μπορούσε να πει κανείς έτσι όπως μας το παρουσιάσατε, για να κατανοήσει κανείς την τέχνη που εκπροσωπείτε ή τις τέχνες που εκπροσωπείτε. Και καταλαβαίνει κανείς ότι ξέρετε πολύ καλά τι λέτε. Κάνοντας αυτή την εισαγωγή, αυτό το κόλπο, θα ήθελα να ρωτήσω πώς θα είναι η performance και το θέατρο τα επόμενα χρόνια. Ευχαριστώ.
You presented your book, and I understand that it is a manual for the arts that you practice. And I also understand that you know what you're talking about. So how do you think that it's going to be performance in the coming years? How it's going to be theater and performance, how it's going to be in the years to come?
I'm a little bit afraid. I'm a little bit afraid that we're going through a boring period, to be honest. There's a new Victorian period busy. So I'm a little bit afraid. You know what happened to me? I just recently had an exhibition in Rome, a solo show in Rome. And I perform often in Roma Europa Festival. It's one of the best festivals in Europe since '87. And the director comes to my opening, and I say, what do you present this year? And he says, a lot of queer work and a lot of black artists. And I tell him, I'm here in Rome for a week. Should I come and see something interesting? No, Jan, it's not so good. It's not so good. I say, but why you present the work? Yeah, because now it's interesting. Now we have to give a platform to queer and to black artists and to feministic art. I mean, to be honest, I think when the quality is not there, you don't have to present it. For me, you can be green, purple, red. You can be Eskimo. You can be everything in between. You can feel like a dog or like a penguin. I don't care. But it has to be quality. It's like also, it's often when I have to deal with museums, often now I hear sometimes, Mr. Fabre, we're going to postpone your exhibition for the coming year because this year we're going to do only feministic art. And now you're going to go and watch the exhibition and you think, very boring. Very boring. They invent now all feministic art. Very boring. So it's very important that we stay loyal to the quality, I think. It can be classical art, classical theater, classical dance, contemporary dance, but there has to be a certain quality, a certain depthness to the work. And what I said before, I'm so afraid. I mean, it's going to be a difficult time for serious artists. The coming 10 years in Europe is going to be a difficult time. I'm, for example, on the blacklist in my country already years. I'm on the blacklist from the extreme right nationalists. They were attacking me 20 years ago already. I had to sleep in 6 different apartments. And now you see in Europe what's happening. Everywhere in Europe, the nationalist extreme right, they're winning more votes. In my country now, we hear now the lost, because I was working in Milano for almost a month, and we hear now they're cutting the awards for theater, they're cutting awards for the visual arts. They want to close down the Museum of Contemporary Art in Antwerp. So they're cutting all these cultural budgets. So it says something, of course. Huh? It's going to be a very difficult time for serious artists. But then again, I believe also, even in difficult times, serious artists, the hunger or the drive, they will be strong enough to go on. Huh? I hope I answered your question.
Θέλετε να το μεταφράσω στα ελληνικά? Τι είπατε? Ναι. Πώς θα είναι το θέατρο και η performance στα επόμενα χρόνια. Παίρνουν μία στροφή προς τη βικτωριανή ηθική. Για παράδειγμα, ένα περιστατικό στη Ρώμη προσφάτως με κάποιον συνάδελφο που έκανε ένα έργο για queer και με θέμα queer και έγχρωμος performer. Και είπε, το κάνω γιατί όλοι το κάνουν, όχι γιατί έχει μια ιδιαίτερη ποιότητα αυτό. Άλλο παράδειγμα, ένα μουσείο είπε, λυπούμαστε, αλλά αυτή τη χρονιά θα κάνουμε μόνο φεμινιστική τέχνη. Με αφορμή αυτά τα παραδείγματα, κατέληξε ο κύριος Φάμπρ ότι το πιο σημαντικό είναι να είναι κανείς πιστός στην ποιότητα. Και ο ίδιος και η θεατρική του ομάδα βρίσκονται στη μαύρη λίστα της ακροδεξιάς της Φλάνδρας εδώ και 20 χρόνια περίπου. Τώρα η ακροδεξιά είναι σε όλη την Ευρώπη. Μάλιστα, πολύ πρόσφατα προσπαθούν να κλείσουν το Μουσείο Σύγχρονης Τέχνης στην Αμβέρσα, αποσύροντας την χρηματοδότηση. Πιστεύει λοιπόν ότι ξεκινούν δύσκολοι καιροί για τους καλλιτέχνες, όμως αυτοί οι καλλιτέχνες που ασχολούνται σοβαρά με το έργο τους δεν έχουν παρά να την αντιμετωπίσουν.
Jan, hi, I'm Zorba. One of the most life-changing and spiritual experiences of my life is when I auditioned for you back in 2000, 25 years ago. And you asked me to clean the whole stage that was maybe 40 meters by 10 meters by licking it with my tongue. So I started doing that very devoted, and you said, no, stop, don't stop. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, more, other dancers were doing other things. I was licking the stage. Finally, I got in, but not because I was licking the stage well. But what happened in that exercise is that I started completely losing my ego and my narcissism as a performer. Later, rehearsing with you 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, again and again and again and again, physically, the ego disappeared and a kind of very profound transcendence, spiritual transcendence started happening. So the moment that we reached the premiere in Avignon, where 2,000 people were shouting and throwing tomatoes on the stage, and the other 2,000 were cheering, the whole, our whole team of performers were in such spiritual transcendence that we were not affected, not from the positive, not from the negative. And for me, that was a victory of the human spirit expressed through 1,000% physical action, let's say. But today, how a performer can find this motive, what is the motive that a performer can seek inside him to reach this kind of physical devotion and experimentalism and playfulness and curiosity like the one that you describe in your book that I have not read yet, but I can imagine. How can we as performers or the younger people can find this motive, this drive for this kind of devotion and overcoming the limits of the human body because there is something higher to go, if I'm clear.
I mean, Apostolia, it's all very, you know, it's all very individual. And we often say when we're teaching everywhere in the world, we often say, listen, we do not want to push you, you have to push yourself. It's, I think a very good performer, actor, dancer, musician, singer, they know they have to investigate their own personal cruelty. They have to see their body and their mind as a target, but they have to do it themselves. You only can go there when you allow yourself and you have the own curiosity, the own longing to go to stretch out your, let us say, the elastic of your brain for your imagination or the elastic of your body. It's all about individual choices. It's all about, and I often say to actors, this is a very beautiful movie. I always, when I have to teach more, let us say, classical actors who really like to do the commercial stuff like Hollywood movies or television series, I always say to them, watch there's an incredible movie with Richard Burton, Sir Laurence Olivier, Philippe Gerard, Schmetterling, all the great Shakespeare actors who did Hamlet. And they were all wonderful actors, top. Also the Russian guy. And when you hear them talking to prepare for the role, and then you know there is no one golden key, you know. Sir Laurence Olivier was from a really British academical school, and he was analyzing everything, word by word, step by step. He was a brilliant actor. He knew the craft, the excellent craft in classical acting. But then you had Richard Burton, who was also a wonderful, fantastic, raw actor. When he did Hamlet, he always went to the cafe. He was drinking whiskey like hell. He hated Shakespeare. He hated the role Hamlet. And he said, the more that I became drunk, the better the words came. I mean, there is not one, you know, there's this famous duel between Sir Laurence Olivier and Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man. They have this famous scene where Sir Laurence Olivier, after torture in the teeth, Dustin Hoffman. And Dustin Hoffman thought, Lee Strasberg School, I'm not going to sleep for three nights in 3 days. And he came onto the set, blue eyes, completely trembling from cold and not sleeping. So Laurence Olivier said to me, you know what, Mr. Hoffman, try acting. But the both are very great actors, you know. So it's for everybody individual. You have to always, I think, for everybody, when I'm teaching, let us say my guiding line, it's let us say, for the people who do let us say, commercial stuff like television or Hollywood, they will take things that for them is suitable, for them is workable. You understand? So it's all individual, I think, because we're all different animals, different backgrounds, different dedication, different age.
Hello. I saw your work decades ago, and I admire it very much, how in a small drawing you show all the sensations, pain, efforts, whatever. Lately, I started watching all your performances. They came, most of them in Greece. Even I stay 24 hours asleep seeing Mount Olympus. All of it I saw, the 24 hours. Last year, in occasion of a festival, I went also to Antwerp. And then I saw all the festival, everything. Meeting people there. I remember one girl doing the thesis from a PhD regarding your work. She was there watching all the rehearsals, everything. And she told me as well that the most important you got is as a teacher, the way you teach and take the best from every performer. It's the same as you now develop with effort this book. My question is other. You came here 10 years ago, and later few times. When you came then, there was some disgraceful happened. Everybody here knows about that. My question is only.
Wait, I didn't understand. Say it again, please.
That 10 years ago, I remember you came here in charge of a festival. Yeah, and finally.
And the record holder.
Hey, the record holder, yes.
From Athens.
Few days.
3 days.
Few days. But
the record.
After that, you return sometimes because Katerina or everywhere you were here for the expositions or whatever. My question is, if at least somebody of the people, of the actors that sign a petition that you are a persona non grata here, if some of them, even privately, I don't know, came and regret about it and told you that. This is my question.
Yes. Different people came to visit me in Antwerp, and they came excusing themselves. It's okay. It's happened. It's past. I like Greece. I mean, the thing is that's. I'm honest. I'm honest. There was way back 10 years ago when I have this record, 3 days director of the Athens in the Epidaurus Festival. I had to make the festival in 3 months, and my communication was not good in the press conference. Because our program, we were for 4 years long choosing for 40 young artists, Greek artists to support them. We had a program for young directors, young choreographers, young visual artists, writers, philosophers, to support them 4 years long. But I didn't get there. Nobody wanted to listen anymore to that section of my festival. So it was bad communication of me. and on my team. Bad communication. But fine, it's okay what it is. And luckily, I have not a great ambition to become director. I mean, often I was invited to become a director of big national houses in Europe, and I always refused it. So it's good that I refused it after 3 days.
Okay, this time, before I asked you a philosophical question, and thank you very much for the answer. But now I was quite shocked. I'm an admirer of your work. I'm here on the top, and I was really shocked by what this lady, Mrs. Zorba, told. That did you really say that you were asked to lick the floor with your tongue for more than half an hour? That was the request. Okay, if that's true and I heard it right, I need to say, because I'm sorry, I have to say it, Mr. Jan, with all due respect, this is an insulting request. I would never accept that. I cannot imagine that this could be a request from the artist to a performer. And I'm really shocked for that. I think that you should apologize to her. I don't know why she's so flattered. I don't know. Please.
Listen, first of all, I never demand from people that they do things. Never. And it's of course in the context because it came out of a quite famous scene from my 8-hour play from 1982. What I did 30 years later also again in Greece. This is theater like I was expecting for scene. I made drawings. I was making drawings on stage with yogurt. And the stage was a kind of canvas, and I had to clean the canvas, and I did myself also with my tongue. I had to eat yogurt. So this was an exercise. And the tongue, it's a very important organ of tasting, discovering things, the papilles. But maybe Apostilia, she did this exercise. Maybe you have to ask her why she did it. Because she was not allowed to do it. It's not that I say to my actors and dancers, you have to now do this or you're outside of the company. No. People do sometimes, often in my working process, I have to say to my actors and dancers, please guys, stop a little bit. Don't go so radical. It's okay, it's okay. I mean, they're sometimes much more radical than I am on paper. But fine, Apostilia, maybe you answered the question. Yeah.
Συγγνώμη, αλλά χρωστάω μια ερώτηση εδώ στον κύριο εδώ και πολύ ώρα.
It's a very short, it's going to be a very short art. This was not the only exercise. There were many other physical exercises. First of all, I did it out of curiosity of what this will create to my body. What kind of movements I could produce, what kind of emotions would arise, and what kind of mind trap I could fall into and how I could overcome it. And before that, we had done lots of exercises for the lizard that Jan mentioned before. So, you know, in order to lick the floor, you have to take posture almost like you're a serpent or you're, and we were working a lot with the serpent and the lizard that are using their tongues to investigate the world, and not only that. So I didn't see anything insulting in it at all, but I saw an opportunity to explore a territory as a performer that I hadn't explored and that actually turned to be very, how can I say, apocalyptic in a way. And that was only one example of the many that Jan was bringing as material for us to explore.
Believe me, I did much more extremer things and radical things as a performance artist than licking the floor.
Λοιπόν, χρωστάω μία ερώτηση εδώ και αν θα έχουμε χρόνο και για άλλη μία, οπότε όποιος θέλει να το σκεφτεί.
Dear Jan, hello, it's Philippos. I have a question, just to say just a bit, that your work is based on the Flemish paintings, on the Flemish painters, so it has a relation with the Flemish painters. The big importance of the Flemish painters, who comes from Jeronimus Bosch, from Bruegel, and comes also to Ensor and to all the things. So, I mean, when I was hearing the story about the tongue, in my mind, it went all the Flemish painters and all the Flemish tradition that happens, just like in the paintings of Bruegel, that he's one, and Jeronimus Bosch, that is one, that is biting his hand, his own hand, repenting himself, and he's tearing down his ear. So I would like to please tell something about the relation that comes from the painting that is so strong in Belgium and in your work, and from there, the relation to the theater, from the painting to the theater and to the acting.
Yeah, what I said before already, it's often, when we're in a new creation, there's often in the laboratorium, in the rehearsal space, I often give to my people, to my company, paintings, reproductions of Bruegel, of Jeronimus Bosch, and they have to study them. And there's so many, I mean, it's very wild, very subversive, and of course, when you study Bruegel or Jeronimus Bosch quite well, they're old verbs and old Flemish sayings. Most people don't know anymore. They're lost in time. So they are, what I said, they're often joking and ironizing the power, the ones who are in power. And it's really typical on Flemish art, because the Flemish, we were always occupied. We were occupied by the Dutch, the French, the Germans, the Spanish. And the only thing that survived was usually the visual artists and the composers. Because, and they, in a lot of works, they're attacking the power. They're attacking the ones who were in power, the occupiers, through the paintings, you know. And it's true what you say about the tongue. When you look to the Flemish painting, the tongue is very important. The tongue is, first of all, don't forget, the Flemish painting, look to the Spanish, Italian, French, it's a celebration of power. It's the richness of the court. In the Flemish art, it's about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Really. It's about drinking, dancing, feasting, eating. And the tongue is very important, because you see often in the paintings, they have tongue kissing, they're licking on things, they're licking on the vegetables, they're licking on the for example, the strawberry. It was the celebration of lust. So you have often, also in James Ensor, you mentioned James Ensor, you have also a lot of paintings where the tongue is coming out, even out of the skeleton. So it's also, yes, all these painters still today, they're a very important inspiration source when I'm creating, when I'm doing improvisations, or when I'm making my mise en scène.
It's not a question, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about the laboratorium, because you talked about the individuality, but there is also the community spirit and the community spirit of the laboratorium. I think that you should explain a little bit what is laboratorium, because there are many young artists and also older people like Apostolia that followed the workshops and worked with you, and Despina and Marianthi. So I think it's very important for the audience to understand what is the laboratorium and what you are doing there, and in what extent it is physical, mental, and different from any other school or place of performance?
It's a quite, to be honest, it's quite unique theater in Europe, my laboratorium. By the fact that over the years, I invited very good colleagues, artists, who all came to the building and made a permanent work. For example, Marina Mrobovic, she designed the kitchen. She made 20 years ago already fantastic work in the kitchen. People like Bob Wilson, who just recently died. He made a very important work together with Anna Müller, the German playwright. They made the work that's connected with the Long Island, with the foundation from Bob Wilson. Sorry? Yeah, the watermill. So, and I have in my laboratorium 75 permanent works from very good artists, really top names. The best painters in the world, Luc Tuymans, Michael Bornemans, their works they sell for 2 million. And they came to my building, they did it for free. Because I gave them a small work of me and they made a painting, a fresco on the ceiling or in the theater. I have really a fantastic, quite unique collection that even the Belgian museums cannot afford. And the reason I did this, because I wanted that my young actors who coming to the building, young dancers, directors and choreographers, that they confronted with real works of art, not with the computer. It's a big difference to see a real work of art, to see a real, the painting of Marina Mrobovic, what she did with blood, or what Bob Wilson made, or Romeo Castellucci. Also, so they are theater artists, visual artists, and philosophers and writers. Some top writers also made visual work. So, and the building is essentially, I made for years a publication, Janus. Janus was a magazine that I made for years, and Janus was a magazine about consilience. I brought in that magazine together, for example, a philosopher together with a scientist, a visual artist with a choreographer. For example, Zizek, the Slovenian philosopher, with a painter, with Michael Bornemans. They made conversations about consilience, about how is philosophy influencing visual arts, how is visual arts influencing theater, how is theater influencing visual arts, etc., etc. And my building essentially is like that magazine. So we always supported a lot of young artists. They came to work over there. We still do that. For example, we now support, or did for a while, a very good Spanish company. Very radical, subversive, the best, in my eyes, the best Spanish company, the most subversive company. Astragon. La Casa del Astragon. Remember this name. Believe me, in a couple of years you will see them in all the big festivals in the world. Alex is a writer, he has his own company, he did performance with us from 8-9 hours long. So they get the building from me. They get the kitchen, they can eat over there, they can cook, they can have the stage, they can have the offices. So we try to support also young artists. Also, we have often meetings with philosophers or theater scientists. So I want that the building, that it's, let us say, feeding each other, you know, from different disciplines. From choreographers, dancers, to directors, visual artists, philosophers, theater scientists. And in that sense, it's a quite unique laboratorium and a quite unique theater, by the fact that I have 75 permanent artworks from top artists in the building. So that makes it already very nice when you come to work over there. You do a masterclass, and then we do always tours in the building for everybody. And you inspire people. Because a lot of young people don't even know Bob Wilson. Or they don't know even the work of Alberto Garuti. He's one of the best Italian artists ever. So I have a lot of artists in the building who are, for example, Orlan. Orlan is one of the most important female performance artists in history, together with Marina Abramovic. She came also to make a permanent work in the building. I know Orlan since she brought me the first to France in 1982. I know her since 1982, also Marina. So, and for young actors and directors and dancers to see you work from Orlan and to understand what Orlan already did in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, it's incredibly inspiring. Because we all think when we're young that we're inventing the war on water or we're inventing the wheel. But there are a lot of other artists, particularly in the visual arts, who make much more radical and daring work than in theatre. For that sense, it's a quite unique place to blame. Katrina the lady Koskina, who I worked with different times as a curator, she was often there in the building already.
Thank you. Jan, I would like to add something, because there are many Greek actors and dancers here, right? Are there? So my experience leaving Greece and going to work there is usually in Greece we work for 4 or 5 hours a day as actors or dancers. Usually the salary that we get per month is not enough to sustain us for the month, so we have to do a second job, either in a theater or dance production or in a restaurant bar. So we end to work 10 hours a day or more, 5 if we're lucky in our arts, and another 5 because we cannot be supported. So working at the laboratory, when I was there, my salary was more than enough to sustain me. I had housing, and we were there for approximately 8 to 9 hours a day. But that include a warm-up, a proper contemporary dance class or ballet class or acting class or singing class, included food, included sometimes a physiotherapist or a masseur for us when we were working very, very, very hard, very, very, very hard.
Don't make too much publicity, eh?
No. Jan, it's very important.
Don't make too much publicity.
It's, you have a reality for many years, and these conditions of work are for you something that it's not familiar for us here. So I think it's very important to know that it's so fantastic to overcome the physical limits of the body and to go to these transcendental states after 8 or 9 or 10 hours of work with you. That is incredible, but you have these right conditions. And this is really something that promotes this work. So it's important for people, when you're talking about your laboratory, it's important also to know that there is these conditions of working for actors and dancers.
Yeah, we're sometimes too good and too crazy because, I mean, we had, Apostolia, we had a chef especially for that food, then macrobiotic food, and then veggie also came inside, and you cook. It's sometimes not easy. Don't make too much publicity.
Λοιπόν, τελευταία ερώτηση πραγματικά είναι εδώ και θα πρέπει να το κλείσουμε γιατί πια και ο χώρος εδώ και νομίζω όλοι έχουμε κουραστεί.
Okay, hello Jan, I am Marianthi. I did the master classes since February 3 times. And indeed, all this curiosity you talked about and transforming and metamorphosing, it's there. And it's nice because also other people, Yanis and Martha, did the master classes. And so we're reading your book as a guideline. I wanted to ask you, because I'm reading the book and I'm doing the master classes, and you're inspiring us, also the teachers that they're there, do you still have the need to write more exercises? You talked about the electricity you feel when you see each day. And of course, the big artist, and you study history and Rubens, and you make a skeleton of all of these, and that's how the exercises are made. But do you still have the need as an artist and as a teacher, most of all, to make new exercises for the new bodies that you see and you interact with?
Yes, I think the last 2 years I'm trying to develop 2 new exercises. Because I became a father the first time in my life, and I've now a son for 4 years old. And I made a lot of drawings when he was 6 months, and also sculptures and writings. And I was observing him a lot, the way he was moving and the way he was playing. It's so enormous, the kinetical intelligence. And I'm trying to develop an exercise where adult performers have to copy the kinetical intelligence of somebody from a year old or 2 years old. And I'm researching this with Cedric and Annabelle and with Ivana. It's a slow process. The second exercise is inspired also by a gentleman. He came 2 or 3 times to a masterclass. He's a disabled somebody. And he's autistic and disabled. And he inspired me also to try to understand his motorique and his kinetical intelligence, and how we can translate this, and how, let's just say, normal people can learn from this. Understand? The way they deal with spasms and contractions. So yes, there are 2 new exercises I'm trying to develop, but it goes slow. I did it now already a couple of times, and usually I do it with let's say the more experienced people in my company, with Cedric, Annabelle, Ivana, with Stella. Yes, I'm still developing. I'm still a young artist. I'm an embryo.
Οκ, λοιπόν, τελειώσαμε. Δεν νομίζω ότι μπορούμε να εξαντλήσουμε τα πάντα σήμερα. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ που ήσασταν εδώ. Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ τον Γιαν Φαμπρ και τη Σίλβια Σολακίδη. Το βιβλίο μπορείτε να το βρείτε έξω. Ο Γιαν θα υπογράφει και αντίτυπα για όποιον θέλει.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Katrina.
Καλό βράδυ.